All right, so I have started our recording and a couple of norms for us. I didn't include a norms slide, but if you want to have your camera off, that's fine by me. If you have questions, you're welcome to use the chat. Although I did enable the Q&A feature, which allows you then to kind of upvote. If you see someone had the same question as you, you can upvote it. So that way I know which are like the heavy hitting questions to make sure to answer. And then if there's a one-off, I can follow up with you if we run out of time. If you can't figure out that Q&A function on Google Meet, totally fine. Use the chat. I just figured it was there, so I would turn it on. So I appreciate you all being here today, and we're going to be talking about the application process for high school. You'll see that they reference the 9th grade school years when they're talking about high school. So it's the application cycle for the 2022-2023 school year but you're actually completing it now. So it gets a little confusing to keep track of what they're actually referring to, but that's how they do things. So I think everyone here knows me, but I'm Amanda Giordano. I'm the school counselor here. And I also have my intern, Maddie Dans, with me tonight. And she's going to be co-hosting, helping admit people and monitoring the chat for me. So we're happy to be here with you tonight. There's a ton to cover. We just got information last week from CPS about some of the changes. And then I went to a training this morning about the high school admissions test. So we're still getting all of the information and details. So there's going to be a ton here. I do have our agenda. So really briefly, we'll talk about what is GoCPS. We'll hit on some of the things that are new or different this year, which if this is your first time going through the application process, it won't probably make a difference to you. But if you have had a student who's applied through the GoCPS platform before, then you might want to pay attention to the new and different aspects. And then we're going to do an application and selection process overview. Within that category, we're going to talk about the high school admissions test, what we know so far, which I think is pretty much everything. And then we'll talk about, we'll do a step-by-step application experience walkthrough that has screenshots of creating your account and looking for programs to add to the application. The very last thing that we're going to do is cover some of the options for high school, so program details. If you're not interested in that information, you are welcome to sign off. I'm going to stop for questions as we go along. So if you're like, I know the different options, I don't need to learn more about programs, and I'm just done with Google Meet for tonight, you can sign off. My feelings won't be hurt. So GoCPS is an online platform that allows families to apply to every CPS managed school and program. So it is for all of our CPS schools and all of our charter schools as well. Note that private schools have separate application processes that are specific to them. I know a little bit here and there, and I'm good at navigating websites, but my first recommendation is that you look at those schools' websites if you're interested in them and reach out to them for information about things like deadlines and application requirements. And it is really nice that we have one website just for the applications, one deadline. It's much easier than in the past when you had to do paper applications and mail them out and all of that. One thing to point out, so today is the start of the application period. There's no benefit to applying right away. There's no early bird gets the worm type of situation with applying. You don't have a better chance of being selected just because you put your application in first. But I do recommend getting familiar with the website. And one benefit to applying early is if you're applying to a program that has something extra, like military schools have an information session and fine and performing arts schools have auditions and portfolio reviews, things like that. Those need to be scheduled. So the earlier you submit an application for those programs, the sooner you can RSVP for that extra component. So you'll get a better pick of the dates and times. But otherwise, no benefit to applying early. Another thing to point out is that GoCPS is used for high school, elementary, and pre-K applications. So if you're going to do some research on the GoCPS website and you're using that search function, you'll notice that all the elementary schools are listed too. So you'll just have to be mindful to filter those search results to include just high schools. In the past, I've talked about 5 different phases for GoCPS. They have they've made it a little bit more streamlined, which makes sense to me. So there's explore, apply, and then selection. Exploring is what you've been doing all the way up until this point, and it'll probably continue as you start to learn a little bit more about programs that maybe you didn't know about or just want to finalize your list. Apply, that starts today, and then selection will occur in the spring. So what's new or different this year? So there are a couple of different things. So eligibility for programs, that's something that I've talked about in the past. Most programs will not have eligibility requirements to apply. CPS is trying to remove barriers and make sure that there's an equal playing field, that every student has the opportunity to at least go for what they're interested in. So most programs won't have eligibility requirements. So anything that might have been an eligibility requirement before is probably still going to be used in the selection phase. That information you'll be able to see on that GoCPS website and on the school profile pages, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. And then testing for high school programs. So all high school applicants are taking a test called the CPS High School Admissions Exam. And that is the only test that is being required for the high school application process. There is no consideration for NWEA. Not all of our students took it last year. The district is no longer using NWEA, so that's gone entirely from the high school application process. And there's no separate exam for selective enrollment. So this high school admissions exam is the only exam that is going to be used for high school. One change is that you cannot re-rank your programs after the deadline. That'll make a little bit more sense later. But before, you could re-rank your applications up until February. Now they're narrowing it just to that deadline in December, which the date was going to be released today. I haven't had a chance to check my email to see if they've sent that or not. But you'll have until that deadline to re-rank your options. The application website is going to look a little different. So the GoCPS website looks the same, but once you go into apply, if you've had a student who's applied on GoCPS in the past, you'll notice that it does look different. And then there are no more activation codes. Again, if you've had a student apply before, or if you've just heard that phrase in the past, no more activation codes are needed. They're just going to use student ID numbers to link student academic information to their application. All right, so moving into our overview of actually applying to high school. This is going to be a little bit of the overview of applying and selection, ranking, and all of that. So the first thing to note, which we'll jump into more later, there are different program types. And so neighborhood school is kind of a special category where students are guaranteed a seat in the general education program of their neighborhood school. They don't even have to apply to attend. So if that's where you want your child to go, you don't have to apply. I do recommend applying just so that the school knows that you intend to go and they get you on their email list so that they can tell you about things like registration, picking electives for next year, all of that nice and early. But you could just walk up to your neighborhood school on, August, whatever the first day of school is, and show proof of your address, and they would accept your child. Again, that's to the general education program. So for Lakeview, most of the students who live around, if you live right around Nettlehorst, Lakeview is your neighborhood school, they just have their wall-to-wall STEM. So their STEM is infused into all of their subjects, but they don't have a separate program that anyone can apply to, right? But if you think about Lincoln Park, they're a neighborhood school that also has separate programs. Some of those programs you do still need to apply for, even if you're in their neighborhood boundaries. Some of them you don't have to. So I'll show you where you can figure that information out. But key takeaway, neighborhood school, you're always guaranteed a seat in the general education program. And then beyond that, we've got two categories that I'll keep referencing. We've got our choice programs and we have selective enrollment programs. Basically, anything that isn't selective enrollment falls under choice. So that'll include magnet schools. So anybody who has fine and performing arts programs, things like that. CTE schools like pre-engineering, pre-law, manufacturing, cosmetology. Our military schools, which are also called service leadership academies. Our international baccalaureate schools, programs, and then our charter schools. So important thing to remember is that you're applying to programs, not schools. So like I said, Lincoln Park has multiple programs. You can't just submit an application to Lincoln Park. You have to say which programs you're interested in. When it comes time to apply, you do get 20 programs in that choice category that you can list, and 6 selective enrollment programs. And these applications, it's kind of confusing because you're doing it all at the same time, all in the same place. It's only when you get to the ranking part where you can start to see those 2 categories separate. Everything's kind of happening like side by side, even when it comes to the selections at the end. So you can see 20 choice programs, 6 selective enrollment programs you can put on those applications. And then when you're ranking them, you're going to rank them from your number 1 choice down to however many you have on your list. So up to, your 20th choice for choice programs or your 6th choice for selective enrollment. And then when it comes time to get an offer, you can get at most 1 offer from that choice category and 1 offer from selective enrollment. Remember that neighborhood school is always going to be an option too. So it's almost like you have three choices potentially. If you do get an offer from choice and selective enrollment, you get 2 weeks to choose. So getting an offer for one category doesn't affect your ability to get an offer from another category. And it could be that maybe you get 1 offer here and nothing in the other. Maybe you get no offers and then you've always got that neighborhood school. So that's how the application and then the ranking and getting offers works. So this is again saying it says you can receive up to 4 offers, which is actually not accurate for our students. There are some elementary schools that have a continuing school, like Alcott Elementary also has Alcott High School. Those students would have a 4th option. They could continue on to Alcott High School. For our Nettlehorst students, you've got a possibility of 3 offers: your neighborhood school, a choice program, and a selective enrollment program. So when it comes to selection for choice programs, either it's total lottery based, just like the lotto, it's a computerized pulling random names, or there's a points system. And some programs will also have priority for things like if there's a sibling, if you live nearby the school. Again, that continuing enrollment, which doesn't apply to our students. You might get bonus points if you live in the attendance area. IB programs will often do that. They'll give students in the neighborhood school or the neighborhood boundaries 50 bonus points. Elementary preference, which I saw a question in the chat about GROW, that kind of relates to the elementary preference. I'll talk about that in a second. Tier, overlay boundaries, and then staff preferences. So again, either lottery, totally random pulling names from a hat, or point system with some bonus points for those different factors. So one thing that I did see in the chat is we had a partnership. It's called Grow Community. And that partnership was with a couple dozen, or well, I think it was maybe 18 elementary schools and Lakeview and Amundsen high schools. And that gave preference for students in those 18 elementary schools to be admitted to either of those high schools, even if that wasn't their neighborhood school. We're still waiting for an update from Amundsen about whether or not they're going to continue that partnership. They've just grown tremendously. Their student body has grown tremendously over the last couple of years. And I think that it's just becoming really hard for them to make that guarantee. So we have the counselors in our network have emailed the principal and we're waiting for a response on that. And I'll let you know when I know. My gut tells me that it's not going to be the case. Like, again, I looked at their numbers and they're kind of bursting at the seams. So I just don't see how they could guarantee seats to 18 different elementary school students. But I don't know. I'll let you know when I find out. Lakeview has said that that's definitely still an option. So if you don't live in the Lakeview neighborhood, just because your student goes to Nettlehorst, they should be able to get priority preference for Lakeview, even though it won't be their neighborhood high school. So I'll keep you posted on that with Amundsen. All right, so when we're looking at the points-based system for choice programs, the points will come from that CPS high school admissions exam that I'll talk about some more, the final 7th grade grades in those core subjects of reading, math, science, and social science, Admission screenings, so if they have to do a portfolio review for visual art or an audition for drama. Geographical preference, again, if they get bonus points for living in the neighborhood. And then essays and recommendations. I will say that that is very uncommon that they'll have essays or recommendations. There's only a handful of programs that require them. So before you or your child start reaching out to teachers about recommendations, just review the requirements. If you're unsure, reach out to me and I can pretty easily find that out. But in my experience, I don't think we've had any students apply to choice programs who've needed an essay or a recommendation. And then I don't really like the illustration for the lottery. It makes it look like they gave seats to the first 4 who applied. A lottery is just a lottery. It randomly picks kids until the seats are filled. When it comes to selections for selective enrollment programs, it is a point-based system, and the tier system is also in play there. So the points come from their final 7th grade grades and that CPS high school admissions exam. And then the way the tiers factor in, so for those who aren't familiar, the CPS they look at all of the neighborhoods every year, and they look at the average income of families in that area, and they break it down even into like little pockets. And the higher SES, socioeconomic status areas, are tier 4, lowest income or socioeconomic status are tier 1. And then what they do is they give the 30% of seats to students with the highest scores, no matter what tier they're in. And then they fill the rest of the seats evenly from each of the tiers, ensuring that students have, from different areas of the city with different economic advantages and disadvantages, have equal chance. Well, not equal chance, but they all have a chance to get seats. They recognize that, if you're from a high income family, you probably have the ability to hire private tutors and do test prep and all of those things. And probably, they don't have to babysit their siblings, which takes away from their study time and all of that. So they recognize the impact of socioeconomic status on achievement. And they want to make sure that everyone has a chance. So tier 4 students are only going to be compared to other tier 4 students. Tier 1 students are only going to be compared to other tier 1 students. And then so they take students from every tier. So most of Lakeview is tier 4. There is a map that I will show you where you can check. I'll show you the tier overlay. The search function doesn't work on my Chrome account for some reason. So I can't look up an address just to pretend. But I will show you cps.edu/schools. I'll show you where you can find this. So if you go to cps.edu/schools and you come down to the school locator, this is the website that you'll get. Again, for whatever reason, the search bar doesn't work for me. So let me just see if I can get rid of this. But if you come over to overlays, you can click on CPS tiers. And then you can, if we zoom in here, we can see that this Nettlehorse neighborhood is mostly tier 4. It's not until you're north of Addison that we start to hit some tier 3. Would you mind popping that URL in the chat? Thank you. All right, let me get back over to this presentation. Okay. And then let me just double check here in the chat. In our Q&A. Okay, I am up to date. So I'm going to move on then. Talk a little bit more about the points for selection. So they put the points in here for selective enrollment. I am not sure if this is the same for choice programs that consider the final 7th grade grades, but they should be releasing all of that on the GoCPS website soon. So it is going to be a 900 point total. Half of the points come from 7th grade grades, half of them come from the high school admissions exam. And then within that admissions exam, half of the points come from the ELA sections and half of the points come from the math section. And again, I'll get into more details about the high school admissions exam in just in one more slide. So you can see that an A is worth 112.5 points. Getting a B brings you down to 75 points that you get towards your selective enrollment selection points. So moving on to some more information about that high school admission test. So all CPS elementary schools will administer the test on the morning of November 9th. This district has selected the date for us, and they have told us that it has to be in the morning. There is going to be a makeup date in December 7th. Students may not test on that makeup date just because they were unhappy with their performance. It will be technologically impossible for them to even take the test a second time. So don't think of that as an option. They have said that if there is an extreme situation where by some chance students aren't able to test on either of those dates, we can reach out to them and they'll figure something out. But we're really, really encouraging all students to try to be here on the 9th and then do the makeup on December 7th if they absolutely have to miss the 9th. Students with an IEP or a 504 plan will receive their usual testing accommodations. The students are going to complete a getting started tutorial prior to testing, so that way they're familiar with the testing platform. It is an online test and it's a new testing platform, so that way they'll have a chance to go in, see what it's like, see how it works. And one of the things that I do appreciate about this testing platform is that there are on-screen test taking tools. So students can, and this is what they'll get to learn in that getting started tutorial, they can gray out answers for the multiple choice answers that they know are wrong before choosing what they think is right. They are going to be able to highlight text when there's a reading passage. They can mark a question if they don't want to answer, if they want to kind of skip over it, or maybe they answered it but they weren't sure and they want to remember to come back to it, they can mark to come back and review it later. And then when they have gotten through all of the questions, they are prompted then to go back if they would like to review the ones that they marked for review. And it does prompt them to review any skipped questions. So I do like that there are some on-screen test-taking tools that weren't available with NWEA. Like I know I'm definitely a scratch out the wrong answers type of person and highlight the keywords. So I'm encouraged that those things are going to be available to them. So as for what's on the test, there are going to be 4 subtests, and this is, as they said today in the training, that this is as much information as they are publishing about the contents of the test. So there are going to be 4 subtests. 3 of them are going to be related to language, ELA, and then there is the math subtest. And so you can see right here how many minutes are allotted for each section, how many test items there are for each section. There will be a brief break in between all of those, each of those subtests. And the goal or the mandate really is that they're finishing. We have enough time for them to finish before lunch. We can see it's a 2-hour and 15-minute like actual in the seat testing time. And so with those breaks in between and getting started before we're mandated to start before 9:30. They'll have time to finish before lunch if they're a student that has regular test taking time. So you can see there the descriptions of each of the subtests. So I'll give you a second just to read. All right. Any questions about what I've covered so far? If you don't finish the test before the time is up, that's it. The questions that aren't answered are just going to be, I guess considered wrong answers. And it is going to be keeping track of the time and ending you like when your 40 minutes or 15 minutes are up. So it would be good just to, and this is something that I'm going to kind of prepare for the teachers and make sure that they address, like thinking, okay, so if we have 40 minutes and there are 40 items, let's keep an eye on the time and average about a minute per question. That pacing is a really important skill to have for timed tests. So it's pretty obvious for the reading and the math sections, that written expression, we gotta need to go a little bit faster, maybe a little bit more than one question per minute. And then that vocabulary section, we'll have to do the math on that one. So good question. And not finishing the test is not one of the reasons for students to do that makeup test date. That makeup test date is really just you were not physically in the building. You did not have an opportunity to test. Good question. All right. So I'm going to move on then from our high school admissions test. You're welcome to ask questions if they pop up later. And we're going to walk through creating your account and going through the steps of applying. I'm really thankful that the Office of Access and Enrollment gave us screenshots. They are a little blurry in some instances, but you'll get the gist of it. So when you go to the GoCPS website, you'll notice that they have put apply now, like front and center on the screen. There's a button up on the top right corner. So you can go in and you can create your account right now. You will see this screen that says parent login, and you will click on create an account. There is an option to change to other languages. If English isn't your first language, if you're more comfortable with another one, you can select a different language from that drop down, and it'll translate everything for you on screen. So you're going to fill in all of the information it's asking for. You do have to select your notification or your communication preference. So it's going to force you to choose either text or email before it'll let you move on, because they want to be able to communicate with you about things that are happening. So make sure that you check one of those boxes. In the past, you could not use a CPS email address to create your account. You can now. Trying to think of any other helpful tidbits from the training. I think that was really it. So when you have just created the account, you'll see this add a student. So if you have an older student who has gone through the GoCPS application process, you're starting from scratch right now. So you do need to create an account. Like I said, it's a brand new application website. So your old information isn't there. So every single parent this year is going to have to create an account. And then you'll click that get started button, and that will take you right into finding your student. So the first question is really, really important. And I think they've done a better job of wording it this year. Is your student currently enrolled in CPS, and do you have your student ID? You want to say yes. If you're saying no, then you're saying that your child isn't a part of Chicago Public Schools and it's not going to be able to get any of their information. If you're here, that's because you're at Nettlehorst, your kid is a CPS student. If you need their ID number, you can call the main office. You can email me or call the main office. I'm always happy to help, but it's something easy that they can help with. Or Miss Dan's is getting my emails too, so she could also help out with the CPS ID number. So you'll go ahead and enter your student's information, their CPS ID number. Make sure you go down and look for that continue application button. And then you'll see a whole slew of sections for you to fill out. A green check means that you're done. The little time means like clock icon means you've started, but you haven't finished. A word of warning that they gave us is that back arrow at the top left isn't what you would think it is. It's going to take you back to the add a student page. So it's going to take you away from any work that you've done in these different student demographic sections. So if you need to go back, if you're like, oh shoot, I wanted to double check that I marked that I have a twin, or that my kid is a twin or a triplet, make sure that you click on that section on the left instead of clicking that arrow. Just don't click that arrow on the top left ever. All right, so student information, some of the stuff is going to populate since you are CPS families already. They didn't do a great job differentiating in their screenshots. So some of this, it may already appear. Like it says there, you shouldn't have to re-enter the CPS ID number, things like that. there are going to be the stuff that it pre-populates, you will not be able to change. So if you notice that there is an error with anything like a date of birth or an address, something like that, let me know or contact the main office, and we'll just have to change it on the student record, and then it'll refresh into the application. Usually last year that would take, I think it was a 24-hour because it refreshed overnight wait period, but let us know. We'll make the corrections for you on anything that it won't let you edit. Siblings. So if your child is a multiple, if they are a twin, if they are a triplet, make sure that you indicate that. You still need to create an application. You still need to add each of the students on that add student page, and you still need to submit applications for each of them. But what OAE will do is if both students are going to receive an offer, they're going to receive those offers together. And if they're going to receive waitlist offers, they're going to be linked together in that queue for a waitlist offer. So it's not necessarily going to guarantee that both of them will get an offer, but it's gonna put them side by side if they're both, like I said, eligible to get that offer or eligible for the wait list. So it kind of gives you some walkthroughs here of where to add the sibling information, and yeah. Moving on, some additional information it's going to ask for. You do have to answer all of those questions. I don't really like the explanation that OAE put here. So if your student has an IEP or a 504 plan, CPS has access to it. You do not have to upload it. They can see that. So you can kind of ignore that upload part. And then a service plan is only for private school students. So no student at Nettlehurst has a service plan. It's just, it's basically like an IEP in a private school. So that's what that one means. It didn't hit on if you are an employee, but there is a section for you to list if you're a CPS employee. You can put that information. Basically, I mean, it's only relevant if you're at a high school that your child wants to apply to. So I don't think that applies to anybody, but if it does, go ahead and add that information too. So that's pretty much everything for setting up your account. And the next part is searching for programs to list. If you used GoCPS in the past, I didn't think it was the most intuitive when searching for programs. And unfortunately, even with the changes, I still don't think it's super intuitive. So I do encourage you, go in, play around. One thing that I don't have explicitly marked in here is that you can rearrange, you can edit your application as much as you need to. So if you go in and let's say you submit an application tonight, you can go in tomorrow and you can take out all the programs you listed and add new ones in and re-rank. None of it matters. It becomes kind of written in stone on that deadline day. So there's no harm in going and playing around right now. So you'll see this search box. You can search by a school name if you know that you're interested in, let's say, Alcott High School. You can search by their name. If your child is interested in engineering, you can search for engineering. So you can search for keywords. There are some options to filter and sort, but those only work with the full list on screen. So if you are searching for a school or a type of program, you can't then also filter those results or sort those results by distance. Kind of weird to me, but I don't know the limitations of this website. So it is what it is. So when you go there, you can sort everything by distance, like the entire list. You can sort the entire list A to Z. But if you search for engineering, it'll show you the engineering options, but you can't then filter that or sort that anyway. That sort by selected is really helpful. So you can kind of see how many you've picked already. Because remember, you've got 20 choice programs and 6 selective enrollment programs that you can list. And so that's an easy way to see what you've put in your list already. And then there's also a map view. So I do recommend looking to see what's close, because transportation issues are a definite issue. Like when we think about the weather in Chicago, for some kids, it'll totally be worth it to take 2 buses and a train to get to school when it's 19 below and there's 3 feet of snow. Some kids are absolutely against that idea 100%. So that's a good conversation to have with your kid and see what's nearby. And then, how far are you willing to go? So that map view is an option. Then to select a program to add to your application. So let's say you were looking for Lincoln Park. you would see the Lincoln Park name. There's going to be that big blue bar that says view programs and details. When you click that, it'll show you all the different programs that that school offers. So you can see that there are 6 listed here for Lincoln Park. You can choose to click all of the ones that you are interested in. I'm wondering, why do they have, wait, did I count right? 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, they have 6. So you can choose all of the different programs that you are interested in to add to your application right there. Once you've clicked on them, there's going to be a little pop-up that hovers at the top for a couple seconds that shows you how many total you've selected and how many more you can select to help you keep a running tally to make sure that you're within that 20 options and 6 options. So you're going to do that for every single school, every single program that you're interested in. When you are satisfied, you're going to continue on to the ranking screen. And this is, again, they're going to divide them into 2 different kind of sections there. You can see all your choice high schools are listed. All of your selective enrollment high schools are listed. And then you're just going to click in that drop-down box to select the name of the one that you want to rank first, second, third, fourth, fifth. And then if you're like, oops, I put one in 4th, but I don't really want it there, you just select, you can click select choice number to kind of like blank it out again until you're ready to put a name in there. And so you can see you are ranking those lists separately because they are kind of like 2 separate applications in the same place. So let's see. So if you select 6, let's say your child was interested in all 6 of the programs offered at Lincoln Park, that would be 6 of your 20 slots for choice programs. Yep. I am not familiar with Jones requiring a recommendation in the past. If that's something that's changed, I just haven't been made aware of it. There is a process that I'll talk about later in the year, and I'll mention it now, but I'll dive deeper later. Principal discretion. So for students who apply to selective enrollment in this first round and don't get an offer, there's a second way to apply called principal discretion, where all of this that I'm talking about tonight is really computerized selection. You know, of course, if you're doing an audition, there's a real person that's viewing your audition and scoring it. But then when it comes to the selection, it really is just computers pulling numbers. But that principal discretion process, which is only for selective enrollment schools, it is like what you would think of for an application, you know, like a college application where the principal is going to look at your materials and there are recommendations that are submitted and you have to write a personal statement, and then the principal gets to choose kind of personally. But that's not until like April. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I am looking right now to see if Jones has changed that about the recommendation. I'll actually, this is a good thing to show you. So I'll share this tab. So that same URL that Maddie put in the chat earlier, that cps.edu/schools. Earlier, I scrolled down and I came over to the school locator, view schools, and that pulled up a map. If you're curious about a specific program, you can just search for them. So for instance, I'm wondering if Jones changed anything. So I'm just going to type in Jones. Here it is, Jones College Prep. And this is a really helpful website in a lot of regards. So if you've been here before, you'll notice it got a facelift within the last couple weeks. You would think that the programs tab is the one to go to, but it's actually admissions. So if we look at our program application.
Ms. Giordano, excuse
yes.
me, we cannot see your screen.
Thank you. Yeah, it disappeared. I just noticed that. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'll back up one step. So this is the cps.edu/schools. So you're going to come over, if you have a specific school in mind, you can just search for them in this box and then click on their name. And then when it loads, there we go. So you're going to come over to this admissions tab. You've got some handy information. You can see how big the school is. Jones has almost 2,000 students. They serve grades 9 through 12. And then if we go over to admissions, we're going to look for, these are special education programs. So these are for students with more severe disabilities that aren't in a general education setting. So let's keep going. So pre-engineering, application requirements, none. Pre-law, none. Jones High School, it says here just the CPS high school admissions exam. So that's my guess. The CPS website, like the GoCPS application, it'll tell you if there is a letter required, but it's never been the case. And they get so many applicants that I don't think it would be something that they ask for, because I don't see that they would have time to read it. But another helpful piece of information here, they do tell you what the selections look like. So it's a point-based selection system. They're now looking at, it says GPA, they're not looking at right here. But then the minimum score on that high school admissions test is a 24% in reading, 24% in math. And then they do give priority by tier, which we already talked about. And then you can see over here how many students applied the previous year. So last year there were 8,391 students who applied and only 443 seats given out. So that's a 5.3% acceptance rate, which I think is really important to talk to kids about. You don't have an idea of the scope of this or what your chances really are, but to put it into perspective, not to crush dreams, but like to have that conversation about, well, let's have plan Bs. Let's make sure that we're giving lots of options, because to put all our eggs in one basket might be a little risky when we think about only 5% of students who apply get an offer. So what else might you be interested in? And we can definitely talk a little bit about like what does it take? It's a hard conversation to have this year with what does it take to get in, because they used to post cutoff scores and I still have them from last year, but those cutoff scores are based on points that they got from having the NWEA test and the selective enrollment test and their grades. So things are a little bit off now. Liz or Mia.
Could you please clarify what those 24% things refer to?
That's a great question that I you know what, I looked at it and I was like, I'm not sure, because they didn't cover that in any of our trainings. So I'm not sure if that's 24% on the test or if that's a 24th percentile, because they haven't really shared with us what the score results are going to look like. So I will ask and get back. I know when it was NWEA, they were referring to percentiles, but
which sounds very low.
Our initial interpretation was that before, when you showed it's 50% grades and 50% test, which is 25% English or writing and 25% math, is that a 24 out of 25 basically for English and writing, and then 24 out of 25 for meaning you've got 1 percentage point you can miss. Right.
I don't think it's that interpretation. And you know, Liz, to your point, that seems really low. That's a problem that I've had, that all of us school counselors have had with this process. So before, to be eligible to apply to selective enrollment programs, you had to have at least 48th percentile on the NWEA in reading or math, which is low. And they don't choose students that low with percentiles that are that low.
Exactly.
So it's really misleading. And we've given that feedback, and CPS keeps saying, well, but it's about equity. It's about equity and access. And so we want them to still be able to apply. But I'm like, well, what's the point if they're never going to get an offer?
Thank you. That's kind of what we were thinking about that too. So, all right.
Yeah. And then I see York, it's probably law and engineering that requires a recommendation. We had a student who applied to the Jones pre-law and even got an offer, and they didn't have it. And it's not listed here. So I don't know. And it could be that it was something someone was talking about with that principal discretion piece in the spring, which isn't a Jones thing. It's any selective enrollment program. They encourage recommendation letters. So, but again, it could be that something has changed this year and it just hasn't been communicated. If I hear anything, I'll let you know. That's kind of where we're at with a lot of things this year. All right. Am I missing anything in the Q&A?
Just a link was dropped on Jones.
Okay, got it. Okay, So I'm going to come over to the presentation again. There we go. And move on from ranking. So then they call this your dashboard. After you've ranked everything, you've got this dashboard to come and see what, where you've applied to. If you need to RSVP for anything, it'll prompt you to RSVP. So like I said, auditions or portfolio reviews for those art programs. IB programs used to require attendance at an information session, and they do not any longer. So it would just be those military schools who have a session that needs to be attended. So you can then come back and change your RSVP for anything. They did note that every program can set their own parameters for how many times you can change your RSVP. And so it will notify you. So in this example, let's say the Shy Arts dance, you're RSVP'd for an audition on November 28th. I think that says you can modify it. When you click that modify button, there would be a little pop-up that would tell you you're only allowed to change this once. Do you want to continue? So just be on the lookout for that. And then on that right half of your dashboard, you'll be able to edit your ranking. So you can click that edit ranking, or if you need to add an application, you can see that plus button at the top. So again, you can do that as much as you need to all the way up until the deadline. And it's not going to make any difference. The schools aren't going to see who's applied or who's, nothing gets sent to the high schools. They don't have access to it until it's springtime and they're doing their selections. Selections do happen really late because of all of those extras, like the auditions and the portfolio reviews and the information sessions. Those programs need time to actually do those things, score them, input the scores into the application site, and then everything can be run. So that's why there's such a delay between the application deadline and when you get to see the offers. They haven't released the rest of the timeline, but in the past, offers have come out mid-March to April. April was last year. With the pandemic, everything got pushed back a little bit, so I don't think it would be that late this year, but who knows? It's a new application system, so anything is possible. So I will pause because that's all I have for that part. So before I move on to the different high school programs that you have, let me see if there are any questions. I'll check out this link here. Got it. Let's see. And completed applications, which include the deadline. Yeah, so this is for transfer applications for Jones, the link that you pointed, or that you put in the chat there. So there are transfer windows once in high school. There are transfer windows throughout the school year. I think it's after the 20th day of school and then at the end of every quarter. And it is also through the GoCPS website. If a program has seats available, theoretically, they're going to show on that GoCPS website. And so you can apply for a transfer. And then it looks like Jones then requires a teacher recommendation for transferring for a transfer application. All right. The official deadline, I didn't mention because they were going to release it today, and I haven't had time to check my email to see if it's come out today. So maybe if you want to check my email while I'm answering other questions. Normally it's mid-December. Last year, I think it was December 13th. So you got 2 months to apply. And open houses are still kind of pending. Some are doing them virtual, some are doing them in person. I haven't gotten a whole lot of direct communication from schools, but I did share out that link for the Padlet, and we're pooling information from all of the elementary school counselors in our area. We're all working collaboratively to get everything on there that's sent to any of us. So that's probably your best bet because they still weren't really updating anything on that GoCPS website for whatever reason. There's just a lot of moving pieces. December 15th at 5. Thanks, Liz. So right around that same time. So you get 2 months. It goes fast. And I would say, try to submit. I'm going to hound you. When it gets to like 2 weeks until the deadline, I start emailing and calling and bumping into students in the hallway and asking like, where's your application? But I think it's good just to get in a little bit before the deadline, just in case you get in and something doesn't look right and you need my help or you need the help of the Office of Access and Enrollment. Give yourself a little bit of breathing room to get problems fixed. And you never know if there's going to be a technical glitch with the website or something. Like, just don't put it off until that last night. I hate for that to happen. It's a terrible feeling to have a ton of people that need my help and just like, there's only so many minutes in the day. Okay, so if no other questions, I'm going to go on to talking about some of the different program options. I'm going to send out the deck, and it has a lot more. I'm going to cover just the programs that our students have applied to in the past, or the program types, and the ones that are nearby. But when you get it's not going to be a deck. It's going to be a PDF of everything. It'll be comprehensive. But in the interest of time, I didn't want to bore you all and cover everything A to Z. So again, we've got 2 categories. We've got selective enrollment. We've got choice, which is everything else. And the different program types are all listed here. We talked about this, going to continue. So there are tons of options. It can be a little overwhelming looking at how many there are, but in reality, they're spread across the whole city. So if you're in Lakeview and you're not looking to travel miles and miles, there aren't as many options as you see on screen here. One thing I did want to just explain is cluster programs. Cluster has a specific meaning when we're talking about like magnet cluster in elementary schools. When they're referring to it in high school, it's those programs specifically for students with more profound disabilities, the students who aren't in a general education setting. So if you're on that like school profile lookup page and you see some that say cluster or modified or whatever, that's what that is. And that's not something that you will see in the application process. Only the students who qualify for cluster programs will see that in that GoCPS website when you're applying. But if you're researching, you're like, what does that mean? That's what that means. So I have put stars by the schools that, or the programs that our students have applied to in the past. So fine and performing arts, we have a couple of nearby options. We have Shy Arts, Lincoln Park, and Sun. Shy Arts, we did have someone get in to the theater program last year. It's not called theater, it's, but theater. And Lincoln Park has their visual arts program, their band, their vocal, and they have their theater program too. Sun is dance, which I was really impressed by the presentation from them. Sun's also a wall-to-wall IB school. So even within the dance program, they're still getting the benefits of IB curriculum. Health sciences just happened to be on this slide as well. There aren't any programs that are nearby.
Ow, Alessandro, stop.
And then general education, I'm really confused by this slide. I added it in here anyway, but I highlighted Alcott High School. It's a nearby option. They are at about Division and Belmont. They do have a general education program that's completely lottery based, except for the students who are in elementary school and want to continue. They're a small school, 320 students. So it's nice if your child is overwhelmed by a big building or lots of people and new faces, or you just want a more personalized experience. But they do have a general education program. Amundsen is listed on here. If Grow is a possibility, that would be an entryway into their general education program. Otherwise, that general education program only exists at Amundsen for the neighborhood students. Lakeview isn't listed on here as general education. I think that's because they're wall-to-wall STEM. Again, I don't really understand. I'm going to highlight Alcott because they're a true general education program that anyone can apply to, and it's lottery-based. For honors scholars, Lincoln Park has one. They've changed their name a little bit in the GoCPS website, so it's confusing. It's named International Baccalaureate, and then MYP, like middle years program is what that stands for, honors/honors. So just keep an eye out if that is one that you're interested in, that you're selecting the right one. It's just a challenging curriculum for academically advanced students. And they pretty much, the minimum is honors courses and then AP for students who are eligible. And we've got Lincoln Park has an honors program. Von Steuben also has an honors program. And we've had students attend both in the past. It highlights here that students may have an opportunity to take college credit bearing coursework, but that's true at a lot of schools and a lot of programs, not just honors. So I'm not sure why they highlight that there. Like Lakeview, they have dual credit programs where students are taking courses for both high school credit and college credit. They have AP classes at Lakeview also, which can earn college credit. So, again, that third bullet point about honors isn't specific just to honors programs. IB programs they're another academically rigorous program, but they're really specific in the way that they approach education. So they've got a very specific philosophy. The IB philosophy is the same around the world, and the sequence of courses is the same. It's a very standardized learning program, whether you're in America or you're in Germany or, anywhere. They're very big on community and intersections, looking how we're global citizens and how things relate, looking at how different subjects overlap. There's a lot of writing, so student has to like writing to be a part of it. There's project-based learning, service learning, which is it's a CPS graduation requirement, but IB focuses on that even more strongly. So we have Amundsen, Lincoln Park, and that star that's over Prosser moved. It was supposed to be over Sen. And then law, I didn't mention it earlier. So Jones does have a law. They have that pre-law program and pre-engineering. And a lot of people are like, oh, maybe that's my way into Jones if I can't make it in selective enrollment. I think they accepted like 11 students last year, and they give priority to if you live. They don't have an attendance boundary. It's not a guarantee, but they have an attendance overlay that they prioritize students in those boundaries. So those odds are even smaller at getting in through the pre-law or pre-engineering at Jones. But Alcott does have a pre-engineering program. We have had students get accepted there. Again, there's that full list of the selective enrollment schools. One note about things that are like pre-engineering, pre-law. What those programs do is they allow students access to courses in that subject that they wouldn't be able to get at another school. So it's not like their whole high school career is going to be engineering related, but they will get several courses and maybe special opportunities related to that topic that they wouldn't get if they were somewhere else. And then STEM, again, wanted to highlight that Lakeview is wall-to-wall STEM. They have a maker lab. They're doing great stuff with their STEM, and just overall at Lakeview. We have had some students apply to service leadership academies in the past. I don't think anyone chose to go there, but you can see the different options. And Service Leadership Academy Military School, it doesn't intend for students to continue on into the military. It's providing a challenging curriculum, but it's also giving students lots of service opportunities, lots of leadership opportunities. So that, again, there are way more different program options than I mentioned, but the others I haven't seen students apply to, and they're not located near us. So just a quick overview. Next steps really are just for you to go on and do some research. You can do the GoCPS website. I also recommend High School Bound. If you want to put hsbound.org in the chat, thank you. Just see what the options are. If you're still looking for ideas, do some research, see if they have any events. Remember on the GoCPS website that you have to filter for the high schools. You should be able to put in your address on the GoCPS website on this search function or search page, and it'll show you what your neighborhood school is. If you're not in the Lakeview neighborhood and you're curious, that's where you would be able to figure that out. So when you're searching, if you click on that school's name, it'll take you to that profile page I showed you earlier, where you can see how many students there are, and then go look at the programs and what's required and how they select students and how many were selected. What I forgot to mention is that on those, the program pages that I just went through, each one of these school names is hyperlinked to that school's profile page. So that's an easy way to get to them. So yeah, you can search by program type, you can search by program group, all sorts of search options. This is, again, the profile page that we walked through earlier. Want to make sure you're looking at the admissions tab. Looks different. You can see that's what it used to look like. And then I'm happy to answer questions. There might be things that I don't have the answers to. I'm happy to reach out to the Office of Access and Enrollment for you. I strongly encourage you to try to reach out to them on your own first. And if you don't have luck, then recruit me for help. But that's it for now. I'm going to keep sending out updates as we get through the next 2 months. I've got that newsletter that I'm going to toss some of this information in. But I'm around. I'm happy to do a Google Meet or a phone call. All of my email signatures have a link where you can check my availability and sign up for an appointment. It plops it right on my calendar. It gives me an email notification. If you use Google, it'll put it right on your calendar. We're not allowed to have parents in the building for meetings. So Google Meet and phone call are primary meeting methods right now. So let me stop. Well, I won't stop presenting because maybe I'll need to reference something. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Patota. My slides I'm going to email out with the recording. So probably not tonight because I want to go home, but tomorrow, Friday at the very latest. Sen has in-person open house dates. Thank you, Amy. That's great to know. Whitney Young, yes, is also this weekend. Lane Tech, Jones. Wow, they really just cram them in there. So I have not been getting a lot of direct notifications about open houses, but again, I'm going to go to the, let's go to this Padlet and I'll share this for you if you've never been to this Padlet. I did put the link in my newsletter and we'll share it out again. All of the counselors that are part of my PLC, my professional learning community, are adding whatever flyers or information we get about open houses onto this Padlet. So this is like it's a virtual bulletin board, really, if you've never used Padlet. So there are videos from last year when they had to make videos because nothing was in person. There are links to just admission pages. If we have flyers, we're putting flyers on there. So you can come in here and see if anything's listed. Looking for Jones. Jones is listed. Lane Tech is listed. So this would be my recommendation for checking to see, like, I haven't even gotten an email from Lane Tech. Like, I feel like I've gotten emails from all of these schools in the past and it's a weird year. So thank you for kind of crowdsourcing and dumping your info into the chat too. They are the high schools are supposed to be posting stuff on the GoCPS website under dates and events. I'll come over there to look and see if anything's there yet, but they hadn't been. So let's see. Oh, they changed it. So under About GoCPS, click on Dates and Events. Oh, list. Yeah, there's still nothing. Well, it says List View, and then it says Today Nothing. So, oh, here's stuff. So they finally did input it. Okay, so you've got two options. You can come over here to this GoCPS Dates and Events section. And then you've also got the Padlet. So two good options. All right, let's see what else. I will, yeah, let me put the link in the chat for the Padlet. And it's also on my Google site, which is also linked in all of my signatures, and on our school website, on the Nettlehorse site. My Google site is listed there, and then the Padlet is actually embedded right into one of the pages. Charter high schools, They're privately owned. They're held to the same performance standards as CPS schools, but my understanding is that they get some wiggle room in how they achieve those results. I don't know a ton. I substituted in one years ago, and it was really cool to see what they were doing with the curriculum because they did have that leeway. We have a student that I've seen a couple times who's at one of the Noble schools and seems to like it. I know there's lots of controversy over them. I think it just kind of varies school to school. I would just do the research, see what their philosophy is, what their curriculum looks like, see if they have numbers posted online about their student performance. You should actually be able to see that information since, they are kind of centrally managed. They're privately owned, but they're still managed within CPS. I think that information should be like out there in public. I'm going to come over to the High School Bound website so that way you can see what that looks like. But also it's just one of my favorite to look at. So if I think about Noble, let's let it load. Oh, it's not even. Okay, well, I guess High School Bound isn't an option for charter. Let's go to the CPS school lookup page and see if we can find that information there. Noble Butler, I don't know. So you would, let's see, under reports, do they have, oh, that's right. There's no data because last year was a funny year. But you can see their five-year graduation rate. So 84% of their students graduate within 5 years. 79% of students enroll in college. Yeah, that's going to be a hard one. I don't have a whole lot of advice to offer about charter schools. All right. Well, I think I've hit all of the questions in the chat, and I don't think anything in our Q&A. Okay, so I'm not going to keep you all. It's been a doozy of an hour. Thank you for being here. Again, if you have questions, email me. I'm open. We'll get through it all together, and look forward to working with all of you and seeing where everybody ends up. It's always really exciting. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mia.
Thank you. Good night.